What's the scariest thing you've ever experienced? r/AskReddit. When I was around 11 years old, my family was on a road trip and stopped to get gas. My mom and I went inside the gas station convenience store while my dad refilled the car. My mom started chatting with a worker, so I wandered off to go look at the snacks and candy. I noticed this man who had his phone raised to his ear and was just walking slowly through aisles. I just assumed he was trying to call someone and focused my attention on all the junk food. Shortly after, my dad came inside and was heading toward me, but as he was approaching, he was able to see the creepy man's phone screen. He was pretending to be on a phone call, but he was secretly videotaping me. My dad immediately yelled to the workers to call 911 and began to chase him. My dad and a worker chased him through the store, but he escaped through the back door, got into a white van that was left running, and sped off. We weren't locals, so we never found out if the police caught him or not. Well, fast forward to when I'm in college. My dad calls me up to tell me a murderer had been caught in the area we had been visiting back then. The man had kidnapped 2 young girls, brought them to the woods, assaulted them, and dismembered their bodies. He was caught because one of the girls had posted a selfie right before she went missing, and he was in the background. Then my dad sent me the pictures and said that was the man I caught filming you. I will never forget his face. My husband had been sick, and I walked in to check on him. His eyes were wide open and his breath was rattling in his chest. I tried to wake him. I yanked him upright crying, "Don't do this to me," then called my Bill, who lived with us, to come help, while I called 911. He helped me get him to the floor and we started CPR, but I knew in my heart he was gone. I was terrified and hurting, and I guess what will always stick with me is the feel of his cold, dead lips as I tried to breathe life into him. That night will be the scariest thing I will ever experience in my life and the most traumatizing. When I was 4 years old, I went on a water slide that emptied out into a lower pool. However, the end of the slide was a significant height off the ground and you would fall about 8 to 10 feet into the water. So when I fell into the pool, I got caught in a whirlpool underwater from the drainage water that was coming from the water slide. Long story short, I started to drown because I was taking water in from being unable to hold my breath. Luckily, there was a lifeguard on duty. He saw that I wasn't coming up and he jumped in to save me. I'd never had any sort of spiritual moments in my life, however. When I saw the lifeguard swimming down to get me, I swear I thought he was an angel coming to save me from death. I will never forget how the sunlight was shining through the water as he swam towards me. I truly thought he was sent from heaven. If he had been even a second later, I probably would have started to take in significant amounts of water in my lungs. Being followed after a very creepy date. I ride my bike home and get a strange feeling he was following me. I rounded the block and went into my usual pub. Told them all about the bad date. Then a tap on the shoulder, it was him. I was pissed. He was very overbearing and angered the bartender didn't remember him as he claimed to be a regular. I was in fact the regular LOLL. The scary thing is everyone knows him in town as a stalker and has a story about other girls saying he shows up at their house and refuses to leave. No one asked me if I was okay or if I need any assistance getting home. I stayed at the pub until midnight so I could be sure he was long gone. That was the night I realized the only person who has your back ... ISU. I was in Austin at SXSW standing on a street corner after leaving the line outside a Mohawk. I was about to cross the street when a car sped around the corner, through the barricade, and accelerated into and through the crowd of people. Bodies flew into the air, shoes and clothing items looked like confetti. 3 people were killed, maybe 20 injured. Horrifying. I've also seen a motorcyclist get run over by an SUV, instantly dead. Recently, I saw 2 men who had just been hit on the side of the highway changing a tire. The driver's side door had been ripped off, and one of the men had been decapitated. I've seen at least 3 cars on fire in the past. I travel a lot for work, and I guess that makes me more likely to see terrible accidents. About 9 years ago, I had surgery to place an ICD defibrillator device in the event my heart stopped beating again. During the surgery, the team discovered I have a genetic condition that makes anesthetic significantly less or entirely ineffective. I told the surgeon I felt the initial incision, and he said a little discomfort was normal. Cut to a few steps later where I was in excruciating pain. The meds were now maxed out. I was given 2 choices: wait for another team of anesthesiologists and doctors to put me under general anesthesia 60 minutes, or continue with the surgery entirely aware and feeling everything. In my mental state, the idea of laying fully awake, unable to move, riled with anxiety was not an option, so we pressed on. The screen above the operating table showed the doctors carefully feeding a new lead through my arteries until they reached my heart. I was calmly told the next step was to screw the lead into my heart. I will never forget the feeling after the 3, 2, 1 countdown of a cold piece of metal being turned into my heart tissue like it was nothing. Once the screw and lead were in, the device had to be tested and programmed like several people's hands inside of you wandering around and touching things they shouldn't. Tested the device with a mini shock, which didn't at all feel small, and then stitched me back up and sent me on my way. The sound of heart monitors and clinically sterile environment of a hospital or doctor's office still triggers my PTSD from the events. No one I've told about this before has ever believed me, but here goes. When I was 10 to 11 years old, I was in Boy Scouts. We knew where there was a natural spring and resulting waterfall on the BSA camp property. There was an old half-Indian man who lived next door who swore that the spring was haunted, but we knew better. I wish we'd listened. The first weird thing that happened was that as I was watching the campfire after dark, the flames froze for about 3 seconds. Didn't move, flicker, just paused. I instantly froze and they started moving again. I asked the others if they had seen it and was immediately ridiculed. One of the other boys who had always been a bully then decided to smack me around. I wasn't having it and grabbed a log from the fire to hit him with. After doing so, I realized that the surface of the log that my hand was touching was glowing coals. My entire hand was engulfed in flame. I immediately dropped the log, but there was no damage to my hand. This was the second weird thing that happened that night. The most horrifying thing was yet to come. Eventually, I got to sleep. I was wrapped up in what they call a space blanket, which is a mylar blanket that reflects a lot of heat. I don't know what time I woke up, but I was awoken by somebody touching my shoulder and shaking me. When I looked to see who it was, I saw that it was myself, without a head. As you might expect, I freaked the hell out. My headless doppelganger fled into the woods before anyone else got up. Like I said, no one believes me when I tell that story. They insist it must have been a dream. It wasn't. The morning proceeded along from there, and I never fell back asleep. I've had a few. Most terrifying would probably hunting by Hudson Bay for elk. I'd spotted an elk in front of some of the almost non-existent brush. I lined up the shot, fired, not sure if I winged the elk or just missed, but I immediately heard a roar. A polar bear comes rushing out of the bush straight at me. I got the rifle up for one shot to the bear's shoulder, according to the Parks Canada game warden, before it was on top of me. I got my 9mm out of its holster somehow, don't remember, between screaming, pissing myself, being flattened, and began firing. Sometime during this, my friends and a nearby hunter not from our group came to see what was happening and got some shots in. They're the ones who got the bear off me. Only needed 12 stitches, had a lot of bruises, dislocated left shoulder, and needed new pants. I haven't gone hunting since then. Still have nightmares of teeth and screaming. The scariest thing I've been through was the days I tried to end my life. When I was 8, my mom told me I needed to lose weight. It was not like I was obese, I was around average, but she wanted me to be skinny. She had me began eating healthier. She would check in to see my weight loss sometimes. When she said I needed to lose a little more, I began fasting so I would lose it. My mom found out and encouraged me to do so. Considering my age, this was a very bad choice for me, and it still affects me to this day. Sometime later, she began saying that girls needed to be thin in order to be pretty, to encourage me to lose weight. I was hurt by this because it was implied that I was not pretty because she had me on this diet to lose weight, so it meant I wasn't the way she wanted me. I went to talk to her about what she said, and she began screaming at me, lecturing me about what she meant. It didn't change what I thought she meant. She was just trying to put it in a different way. It escalated to the point where I ran out crying. She had me get off that diet, but not because she felt bad and realized her mistake. It's because my dad found out and wanted her to apologize. She didn't. I guess that was her way of it, though. It still affects me to this day, because now I have been struggling to eat meals. I don't feel like I need to, even if I want to, and I just don't feel okay anymore. After that, I began feeling hopeless and just wanted to leave and be free. I had plotted out so many ways for me to die. Even now, I have the slight temptation to jump in front of a moved train or bus or car. It just scares me that I may not live to see the ones I grow and change and find who they are.